Good evening, I'm Melissa Ridgen. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. The wheels set in motion by the departure of Jody Wilson-Raybould continued to roll across the political landscape all week. The latest were reports that the Prime Minister was going to issue a statement of contrition over the whole affair. That was the night before his friend and former top advisor Gerald Butts appeared before the Commons Justice Committee. APTN's Amber Bernard picks it up from there.
The Prime Minister started his day early here at the National Press Theatre in Ottawa, talking about the SNC-Lavalin affair, where he admitted that he failed to see fractures forming in his cabinet.
I was not aware of that erosion of trust. As Prime Minister and leader of the federal ministry, I should have been.
Trudeau was also reacting to what his former advisor Gerald Butts told the Justice Committee. Butts, who resigned his job in February, gave a very different version of events than former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould did a week before at the same committee. She says she was facing political pressure to intervene in a criminal case against Quebec engineering giant SNC-Lavalin. Butts says that's not how he saw it, and Wilson-Raybould told the Justice Committee she lost her job because of it. Trudeau didn't really answer that question.
No, any decision to move a minister or make changes to cabinet has multiple reasons and reflections and motivations, and there were already many decisions that had been made and were in the process of being made that there wasn't any question of moving backwards on.
As expected, the opposition pounced on just about everything Trudeau had to say. The Conservative leader, Andrew Scheer, is still calling for his resignation, and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is calling for a national inquiry. Elizabeth May, who's the leader of the Green Party, was allowed to sit in on the Justice Committee Wednesday, and she says she doesn't like what she saw from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today.
I found the Prime Minister's press conference this morning deeply disturbing. It's clear to me that not only does he not understand the lessons of the what he calls the breakdown of trust with Jody Wilson-Raybould, he fails to understand that she's right.
Trudeau was also asked this morning whether he would be making an apology to anyone involved with the SNC-Lavalin affair.
I will be making an Inuit apology this afternoon, but in regards to standing up for jobs and defending the integrity of our rule of law, I continue to say that there was no inappropriate pressure.
The Justice Committee is now requesting an emergency meeting to take place within the next 5 days so that Jody Wilson-Raybould can testify again. Amber Bernard, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Gerald Butts wasn't the only one in the Justice Committee hot seat Wednesday. Privy Council Clerk Michael Wernick made a second appearance. He admitted that former Privy Council Clerk, now chairman of the SNC's board, asked him if anything could be done to help the company avoid a criminal trial. That led to some testy words between Wernick and Deputy Conservative leader Lisa Raitt.
Not more than 2 weeks ago, when you gave your first testimony about having no contact with SNC, you said nothing about this phone call, and yet today
I was cut off, if you recall, Ms. Raitt. I was proceeding to read the chronology, and I was cut off with it incomplete and undertook to provide the chronology to the committee, which I have done.
Well, thank you for cutting me off, Clerk. But as I was going to say, I think it's incredibly pertinent, and you must have had a knowledge of it because you gave us almost a verbatim right now about what the content of that telephone call is. Can you not see how disturbing this could be for Canadians to see that former clerks who are now chairs of boards of SNC-Lavalin have easy access and immediate access into the central office of this government, into your office, when you turned down everybody else and walked out of a gala because you didn't want to see SNC anymore? Do you not see that as a problem for this country?
No.
Earlier in the week, reaction was still coming in after Jane Philpott quit her job as the head of the Treasury Board. That happened on the heels of Wilson-Raybould's resignation from Cabinet. A lot of people applauded Philpott's support for Wilson-Raybould, but not everyone. Here's Amber Bernard again with that part of the saga.
Indigenous lawyer and activist Joan Jack says she's proud of Jane Philpott's decision to leave Cabinet.
As an Indigenous woman, I was very moved to see a non-Indigenous woman stand with Jody and take such a principled position. I was very proud of her.
While Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand says Philpott's resignation means she's abandoning Indigenous issues, especially when she was Treasury Board President and still able to affect fiscal policy.
She was hope to them. She was the champion that they waited for to come along, and for her to just walk away because it's her principles that are being affected right now. And from my perspective, how about the principles of those children, the principle of her commitment, the principle of all those other issues that are so fundamental? Is her principle more important than all of the tens of thousands of children out there? I don't think so.
Jack says it's not abandonment, but standing up for Indigenous rights in Canada.
No, I'm not disappointed in her resignation at all. And I think the work that the Canadian state has to do with our people will continue no matter who the minister is. And what's relevant is that we need ministers that have integrity to work with our community. I am so done with people promising us stuff and then not following through.
Despite the resignations of Philpott and Wilson Raybould, Chartrand doesn't see Crown-Indigenous relations changing. He believes Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is the real champion in that relationship.
He's the one who set the template of where his government's going. He's the one who stated we are putting Indigenous people first. Wrote a letter to every one of them, including Philpott, including Jody Wilson-Raybould, and every minister, saying that Indigenous matters is the #1 priority for our government, and it's the #1 matter you must achieve as a minister.
The SNC-Lavalin scandal will continue tomorrow morning. That's when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's former principal secretary, Gerald Butts, is expected to appear before the Justice Committee. Following in the afternoon, it'll be the Privy Clerk Counsel Michael Wernick. Amber Bernard, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We're now a month into the SNC Wilson-Raybould saga, and it's interesting to remember back to a time before it all went sour, and then also how it went sour. APTN's Beverly Andrews takes us back to 2015, where it all began.
On November 4th, 2015, Canada's 23rd Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, was sworn in at Rideau Hall in Ottawa. The event attracted thousands of interested onlookers to the grounds of the Governor-General. It was an exciting and historic day as Prime Minister Trudeau announced his 30 cabinet ministers. Some called a few appointments groundbreaking. Well-known First Nations leader and former Crown prosecutor Jody Wilson-Raybould was the first Indigenous person to be appointed Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada.
I'm very excited. We have a tremendous team around the cabinet table, and I'm looking forward to getting on with the work.
It began like a dream for Canada's relationship with Indigenous people. But like many dreamy relationships, it wasn't built to last. In 2019, Jody Wilson-Raybould was shuffled from Attorney General to Veterans Affairs. When asked about speculation that Wilson-Raybould was removed for butting heads too often, Trudeau had this to say.
Was she moved for speaking truth to power too many times?
We have a great team of very strong ministers who've stepped up time and time again to serve this country. And the way we do it together is something that has made a positive impact on all Canadians, and we will continue to work hard exactly on that.
The big question was why. A Globe and Mail article had a possible reason. According to the Globe and Mail report, the Prime Minister's office wanted Jody Wilson-Raybould to get federal prosecutors to cut a deal with SNC-Lavalin to avoid a trial. The Montreal-based company was accused of paying millions in bribes to public officials in Libya. At a press conference in Vaughan, Ontario on February 9th, Prime Minister Trudeau denied his office pressured Wilson-Raybould.
The allegations in the Globe story this morning are false. Neither the current nor the previous Attorney General was ever directed by me or by anyone in my office to take a decision in this matter.
Opposition leader Andrew Scheer believes otherwise.
Jody Wilson-Raybould lost her job for refusing to bow to pressure from the Prime Minister's office.
What that do you have?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's up to the Prime Minister to come clean on this.
Raybould-gate dominated question period. Both the NDP and Conservatives grilled the government.
And SNC-Lavalin was rewarded, Mr. Speaker. When they faced corruption and fraud charges, the Liberals leaned on their own Justice Minister not to go to trial but to get a plea deal. Yeah. Do Liberals seriously expect Canadians that all of these illegal and troubling events implicating the Prime Minister's office itself and their former Justice Minister are all somehow just a coincidence.
Yeah. Did the Prime Minister fire the Attorney General because she refused to do his dirty work? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has said, no such direction was given to my predecessor. No such direction has been given to me.
In the Globe article, Wilson-Raybould refused to comment on any of the allegations, and she did not answer any questions in the House of Commons. But she did testify at the Justice Committee, and boy, did she drop some bombs.
In my view, the communications and efforts to change my mind on this matter should have stopped. Various officials also urged me to take partisan political considerations into account, which it was clearly improper for me to do so. We either have a system that is based on the rule of law, the independence of prosecutorial functions, and respect for those charged to use their discretion and powers in a particular way, or we do not. While in our system of government, policy-oriented discussion amongst people at early points in this conversation may be appropriate, the consistent and enduring efforts, even in the face of judicial proceedings on the same matter, and in the face of a clear decision of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Attorney General to continue and even intensify such efforts, raises serious red flags in my view. Yet, this is what continued to happen.
On Friday, the Prime Minister blew into Iqaluit after Nunavut's trademark unpredictable weather forced him to overnight in Labrador. He came to apologize for how Canada mistreated Inuit tuberculosis patients in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Kent Driscoll reports.
Between 1940 and 1960, half of the Inuit living on Baffin Island were sent to sanatoriums in the south for tuberculosis treatment. They were given numbers instead of names. They lost language and culture, and many never returned home. Today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau apologized to Inuit for that dark period of Canadian colonialism.
It shouldn't have taken us so many years to tell you that. We are sorry that you have carried this burden for too long. We are sorry that because we waited, there are many loved ones who will never hear this apology. Today, we take responsibility for the harm caused by the policies and actions of the federal government. The racism and discrimination that Inuit faced was and always will be unacceptable.
An apology without action is just words. The federal government and the Inuit organizations have a plan to help Inuit locate the graves of family lost during the TB epidemic.
In Inuktitut, Nanilavut means let's find them. And that's what this project is about finding and honoring Inuit who went missing during the TB epidemic and bringing healing and closure to everyone who was left behind.
Elisabeth Davidi Aningniok lit the kulik today. She also had one of the most inspirational moments of the apology. She began singing an Inuktitut hymn, and the crowd joined in.
I feel good that the Prime Minister felt it was important to come back up here even when it was a day delayed. It was important to us, and it was important to hear directly from him. And so today, I feel relieved.
Following the ceremony, Trudeau took questions from reporters. Following those questions, ITK President Nathan Obed took to the podium to scold reporters for their coverage.
But the fact that media passed right by the people whose human rights abuses were not told by the media for decades to other stories of the day is still a reflection on the work that needs to happen on reconciliation.
The government said sorry, from the highest level, directly to Inuit in an Inuit community. To the people in this room, that had value. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Time for us to take a quick break, but we've got lots more news, so stick around. Welcome back. When local police raided 2 cannabis stores on the Akwesasne Mohawk territory, things got heated between community factions. Our Danielle Rochette was there.
It's in the land. Provincial search warrant. Akwes are executed.
2 Akwesasne cannabis dispensaries were raided twice by the Akwesasne Mohawk police this last February. The last raid on February 22nd ended up with a police vehicle on fire near the St. Lawrence River. The reason of the raids? The dispensaries did not have the license from the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, but were instead licensed by a traditionalist group called the Indian Way Longhouse. Confronted with the frustration and anger from groups of the community, the Mohawk Council and the Grand Chief Abraham Benedict want to take another approach in regards to cannabis regulation.
We have since been in conversations with various representatives of the community to discuss what a more fulsome collective process would look like for the ongoing development of a framework, a regulatory framework for our community to be able to regulate and license the cannabis industry within Akwesasne.
Roger Joke Ganaladio has been sitting on the Man's Council for 13 years within the Indian Way Longhouse. As one of the representatives of the Longhouse, he denounced the interference of Akwesasne Mohawk police and other non-Mohawk police on the cannabis dispensaries.
2 times they got robbed, 2 times they were set back. But they opened the next day. We don't live in a dictatorship. We are Ogohue. And Ogohue live free.
Ganaladio thinks that things can be turned around in a positive sense.
Communications is the most important thing. And I think by working to come to a peaceful understanding. Because basically, I see that we can do that without having to say he won or we won or they won or, the people's got to win.
He also hopes that the police will collaborate to the ongoing process.
I hope we don't see the aggression of the police again. I really hope that they see that we are working it out and they need to stay out of the business. As we know that tensions get high real quick.
But there's one thing that everybody already agree upon.
We want to create jobs in our community. We want to have small businesses. We want to have an economy that's supporting our community as well as having a collective benefit for everybody. It's just a matter of getting through, the framework, what a framework would look like.
Danielle Rochette, APTN National News, Akwesasne.
Willow Fiddler reports that an agreement has been reached to build some new homes on the mold-ravaged Cat Lake First Nation in northern Ontario. Now everyone is looking to the province of Ontario to kick in with some help.
The member of Provincial Parliament for Cat Lake First Nation continues to call on the province to assist with the community's housing crisis.
Chief Kiwagabo has requested for 10 to 14 housing units so that residents be removed from the contaminated houses. Last week, this government claimed that funded an infectious disease specialist to conduct a full medical assessment of the community, and that additional nurses have been deployed in the community. I spoke with the chief. Medical specialists were sent, but by the federal government. And there are no additional nurses.
In February, Cat Lake reached an interim agreement with Indigenous Services about a month after they declared a state of emergency over mold-infested homes.
When a social emergency is declared, the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs plays a coordinating role in efficiently responding to these emergencies. And, Speaker, we do know that while the provision of housing on reserves remains the responsibility of the federal government, we have reached out to the community to offer Ontario's full support.
But it's not clear what that support means. More than 100 houses in Cat Lake were inspected late last year, and in early January, mold in homes were believed to be the cause of severe health problems for many people in the community. In February, Mamaquah and NDP MP Charlie Angus visited Cat Lake and immediately called for a full medical assessment of the community. Indigenous Services says they're waiting for reports from epidemiology and respiratory specialists who were there last month. Mamaquah says the province and feds need to work together to make sure the community has access to medical specialists.
Will this government stop playing games with the lives and the health of children and families of Cat Lake and send up the emergency health team to the community so desperately needs now?
The community is set to receive materials to build 15 new houses, repair 21 existing homes, and 10 portable housing units are to be installed while the Winter Road is still open. The Minister of Indigenous Services is expected in Cat Lake First Nation this week to sign the agreement. Willow Fiddler, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
We need to take another quick break, but we'll be right back. The city of Yellowknife braced itself for some scary times when northern filmmakers were in town for the largest film festival in the Northwest Territories. Charlotte Moritz-Jacobs has more.
In its 7th year, Dead North saw 40 films, and it's uniquely northern. Amateur filmmakers from the territories and other circumpolar countries have 6 weeks to make a 5-minute film during the darkest and coldest months of the year. The Horror, Sci-Fi and Thriller Festival also includes workshops for filmmakers. Veronica Spears is part of the territory's growing film industry. She's teaching special effects makeup to this group.
I love that it gives people an opportunity to do special effects makeup. When I first moved back to Yellowknife a few years ago, there was nothing like this. I never had a chance to play with makeup and do fun things like this.
It's a prosthetic workshop, and her students excelled. They created these looks in under 5 hours.
I think they really enjoyed painting their pieces and seeing their work come to life.
And their hard work is paying off. The films are recognized through an award ceremony, but the awards aren't the main motivator for the 4-day event.
I think the true spirit of Dead North is sort of on the community, what I was saying about community. It's really about building capacity here in the North for Northerners to tell Northern stories from a Northern point of view. That was why it was created. We started it back in the day because we just didn't see much Northern content up on the screen when we'd have a film festival here in town.
These are our new students.
This festival attracts all sorts of non-film folks too. More schools are getting involved, and this year, half of the films were made by women.
We're 170 films in, and now half of this community knows how to make a film.
Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
That's your APTN News Weekend. I'm Melissa Ridgen, and I'll see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.